Well, it's just about a minute gone past the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning time. Good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to you wherever you are. Welcome to today's edition of To The Point. For today, the 16th day of the month of October. We want to say thanks for being part of this glorious Monday morning experience, and it is an experience. Being alive and well, still being in the land of the living. I know some of us, we still reflecting on where we were just about 40 years ago. What were we doing? What the mood and the anticipation was like. But I want to say thanks that we're here and we're grateful. For those of you that's on television, GBN Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 24 in cable, or if you're on the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd, welcome to today's edition of To The Point. It is Monday, and it is the 16th day of October. And as we've come to anticipate, as we've been part of our staple on Monday, we have the man himself, the educator, I don't know how do you refer to him, family, friend, he's everything. Sylvan Intyre.
Yes.
Old comrade, good morning, how are you? Welcome to The Point.
Yeah, my comrade, good morning. Thank you for such a gracious welcome. I do feel welcome every time at GBN, and maybe I would not overstay my welcome, but maybe I may take residency at the GBN because I'm here so often. But it's always my pleasure to be here, and I do this for everyone, and it's always a pleasure. And I do this for the people. Every time I walk around and someone meet me at the mall, like there was a senior citizen who met me at the parking lot a couple of days ago, and she said, Mr. McIntyre, you're always in my living room, and she did say a special prayer for me. God bless you for your contribution. You know, that gave me another $1.5 million.
Well, now that you say that, I start thinking that Heroes Day is Thursday. Thursday, is it? Am I getting the days right?
19th, yes.
Yes, and it's a good way to start thinking of our heroes.
Yes.
Those that we sung off on the unsung one.
Heroes, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, very often the unsung heroes are the ones very often that's very often we see the prevented attention, but the contribution goes. It surpasses that which you and I may not even consider.
Yeah.
Unsung heroes. If you have to think of an unsung hero, though, who's going to come to mind?
There's quite a number of them who do things and they're not at the forefront. They don't make themselves exposed and do it for the sake of doing it. And sometimes you don't even know the names of the unsung heroes. The people who are there, like our garbage collectors and all these people, they are unsung heroes. They do keep our nation healthy and everything, and people don't recognize them. But there was one time I was engaged with a particular group of young leaders at the St. Joseph's Convent. And I was at the Community Relations Department at the RGPF, and they were having a recognition day, and they said they wanted to recognize some people. And I had this very stern surprise. He brought me a trophy, and it said Unsung Hero. And I was like, oh, wow. And they said to me, Mr. McIntyre, we're listening and we're looking. That moved me quite a bit, and it really gave me a bit of further adrenaline and impetus, energy to continue, making my contribution. So those young people, I know they've gone off from graduation from convent many years. Well, not so many years, but they're all employed now. I'm sure they're making a contribution, and maybe they're still looking on. So your journey, your path along life's way, it has to be marked, and your footstep has to be one that people should follow. Because if they do follow it, whether it's on the sand of time or otherwise, it should lead to some place that is positive, and that's my honest, genuine endeavor to impact the lives of people. And for those, especially the people who are retired or otherwise, or those who just there in their living room, who sit every day and look forward to our program on Monday mornings. Sometimes I think I may lose the energy and the zeal to do it. Would people get fed up of hearing me all the time being this? And I get that feeling, maybe you should stop, maybe you should change. Right. And every time somebody say to me, continue doing what you're doing, you make it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna find the topics. I'm going next month.
That's all that you need.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you for all of you who've been making your contributions, those of you who kind of bring things to us and say, Mr. McIntyre, highlight this.
Right.
There was one of my good friends said, you've been talking about sign and all these and how people should adhere to them. And there was one between St. George's and St. David, somewhere around the Close Rock area. He said, welcome to St. David, I think, and the sign is on the ground somewhere for many weeks and months maybe, nobody's really check on it. And I think there has to be a regime in terms of signage across country. It really speaks a lot. And today, we are going to be just chiming in a little bit on the national security issue we started last week.
Yes.
And because it's Heroes Day coming up, it's Thanksgiving as well.
Yes.
And then we're heading towards 50. I think it's only pertinent that we touch a little bit on that. And then we will kind of slant it into how does where we started fit into all of that in terms of managing your risk and preparing for the eventualities.
Prepared for the eventualities. For those of you who didn't cater for the 19th being on holiday, well, allow me to say to you, it is a public holiday. The day is going to start with an ecumenical service. Then at 1 o'clock, there is the tolling of the bells, church bells across the island in unison. And the day, in terms of what's been planned by the celebrations committee, it ends with a candlelight vigil at on the carronage in the evening. But as you intimated last week, we started talking about.
But before you go, Jojo, before you go into last week, I just want to remind myself and viewers and listeners that October 19th, 2023, Heroes Day is the first official recognition of that day. Despite there has been initiatives and activities, I don't think it has taken that national recognition. I think it's the first time it's going to be a holiday, and maybe it's going to be coming true. Correct me? Am I right?
Yeah. And what is good about it, I mean, where I had Jackie Alexis and Gail Purcell, who's part of the team.
Right.
And what is unique about this one is that, as you were saying, though, outside of October, Thanksgiving 25th, it's probably the only holiday that probably most of us in this generation, most of the holidays we've met it here.
Right.
So we've never had an opportunity to make a direct input in it.
Right.
We've met Corpus Christi, we've met this, we've met all of those other holidays here. This one,
it is true, very historic.
we get an opportunity, it's historic. We get an opportunity to say, what, you know what?
Yeah.
I may agree, I may disagree, I may not be satisfied with the way our history has turned out.
Yeah.
But as a young person, as a Grenadian, I am getting an opportunity, Mr. McIntyre, to be part of this conversation. Not a conversation that surrounds what's gone.
Yeah.
But how do I get a chance to fashion the next 10, 15 years and be a part to contribute towards it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really happy that, I've never really looked at it to the way you really expounded, that we are part of the new history. And we will chime in a little bit on that, but there will be, and there has been, controversies over the March 13th, October 19th, October 25th, etc. Whether revolution, whether it was justified or not. October 19th, who should be considered a hero or who should be considered a martyr. October 25th, whether it was an invasion, a rescue mission, or an intervention, or all of that. So there will be controversies over those dates, and I think the only time it will be eroded, or history should be written, but I think the next two generations will probably not have those kind of controversies, because the history would be written. And those of us who lived through those experiences and have different sides of the coin on the table will be all gone by then, and so then that will settle the score as to how the new generation takes that. But the conversation is good, it is genuine, and we have to focus as a nation, how do we build from the history? How do we create the impact for the now, and what we project for the future? How are we going to contribute positively to it? How are we going to put aside the petty party politics, and how are we going to look on the macroeconomic development and the social involvement and increase and change in lifestyles and pattern positively that we want to contribute towards?
It's interesting you say that, because when we look at the history, the history of what happened during that period literally gives us an indication, point as an indicator that as a country we are willing to come together for the growth of our country.
Yes.
Because that's the genesis of it, really and truly.
Yes.
It was about forward progress.
Yeah.
Some we didn't quite get right. And I keep saying it doesn't matter which side of the political fence you fall on. Believe me, progress through the history of time has always been marked by the blood of martyrs.
Yes.
And we could argue it, I mean, we look, for example, at what's happening in Palestine, and somebody says, well, what's happening? Why are they fighting?
Yeah.
And I said, son, we have to go back in time and understand what is it. And the one thing that they did, I remember, that comes out of it, is that you cannot ever dampen a people's will and their spirit to live and to exist. You could take away the material things, Sylvan, and we lost a lot. We lost loved ones. There are things that we'll never regain. But our spirit, that inner nature that something says to us, I will survive, notwithstanding that I went through 1983. Notwithstanding what happened on the 19th, notwithstanding what happened on October the 25th, as a people, we will aspire, we will advance as one, and that will never change.
And that's why people are prepared to die for their own cause. Once people are convinced innately they are strong, they are passionate about something, they will go to the extent of sacrifice their lives. And this is why you have martyrs, and this is why you have with different religions, people believe that they will die for the cause because they are convinced that this is what they need to do. And when people believe in, whether you think it's an ideology, a concept, or otherwise, they will fight. And this is why the Palestinians and people in Eastern Bloc countries and other Islamic countries, etc., they think that what they're doing, they consider themselves fighting for a cause, that if I did not benefit from it, those who come after me, they will benefit. And because they also believe that when they sacrifice themselves for a just cause, that there is beyond this life something that they will benefit from. So the conversation goes on.
And it's interesting how that conversation takes into focus the risk and the challenge to national security. Whether or not you call it that sense of nationalism, that sense, whether you want to call it extremism, what are the threats? And everything we do, Sylvan,
as a risk,
there's always a risk, there's a threat, there's an opportunity. In marketing, there's the SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So there are weaknesses. Without the weaknesses, there come opportunities. But with those opportunities that you have to achieve, there is a threat that comes with it. You can't ever take away one from the other.
And that's why people like myself, we will always have a job, because there's always some kind of a risk reduction. People who get themselves involved in disaster risk initiatives and interventions, there'll always be an opportunity for you to make a contribution towards something, because they always exist. And this is why I encourage people to find the things that can find you eventually, because you get yourself involved in maybe some skill or something that people will want to have your resource, your knowledge, your experience, and all of that will continue. So, JC, let's do a little in terms of where we should have started. We'll do a little review in terms of what happened during the course of the week and all that. I think, again, heart-wrenching, the destruction of the primary school in St. Andrew.
The Anglican school.
That's terrible. Anything that affects the lives of children, the elderly, and to an extent women, that grouping, it goes deep into the heart. And when our children are marginalized or they are inconvenienced by some cause, it really drives home something that says we always have to ensure, again, managing the risk to cater for. And we will ask the question, what measures, safety measures, were in place to have prevented the loss of an educational institution? Were there fire alarms? Were there hydrants in close proximity that could have alleviated, earlier?
And let's say if they were working ones. And what system of electrical was involved? Maintenance
issues. And in the event that there is the threat maybe of arson, whether or not the security mechanism that was there was adequate. My line of things, once I hear something happen, these are the questions that automatically comes to mind. And we are so very reactive that one of my drives is to get us to the point of being more proactive, project a bit more, prepare and plan ahead of the events. Those of us who came through systems of understanding where things can really lead, kind of a draw it from us to build so that we are able to mitigate or minimize the loss, or we're able to prevent some things from happening.
Well, someone asked, I know someone asked, how do you prepare for eventualities that you have no control over? Let's say fire. Some people make that argument.
You have a lot you can do.
How
There's a lot. And by the questions I ask in terms of what things are there, one, the fire department of the RGPF have been doing a fantastic job in going around with even the youngsters and telling them about fire prevention, etc., and things that they can do. And the other things that has to happen, it must be institutionalized. That, and it's one of the conversations that I'm intending to have with Ministry of Education sometime very soon. I hope I get an opportunity to make a request for that. Is the school safety programs, and safety in its sense, not for sometimes the natural interventions by nature or otherwise or hazards, but the human interventions and those that you really can see that those kind of risk of fires and so. The education forum must speak to having plans that would cater to what people need to do. Have an inspection process as to how often these things are checked. Have a team of persons or individuals assigned to safety measures. If you do this and you have practice, you have drills, you have inspections and these things, you can definitely minimize or prevent some of these things from happening. So while you cannot prevent a fire technically if it's going to be ignited by electrical fault, because you have sometimes the rodents get into the roof or some places and they may strip on some of these wires. Because when you do a wooden structure, a lot of times they do not run them through conduits. They are surface wiring. Surface wiring are exposed to rats and other things that can bite them. What you do when you have a surge with exposed wire, you create a cross socket. When a cross socket is created, it creates an ignition or combustion will be generated. When that happens, anything that is within close proximity will be further ignited and then a fire can spread thereon. Electrical always creates some level of ignition. It sparks off, and then the plastic of the insulation, therefore, in itself, will create some level of fuel. That fuel spread from point A to Z, and there you have a fire. So if you have an inspection process that tell you, look at these things, probably you would pick that up much quicker and earlier than something happened down the road. And so that is, you can prevent and minimize some things.
And that inspection process can be doesn't limit itself just to a place of employment or school.
No.
But even at home.
Even at home. But my problem is, and my challenge and concern for some of our established institutions, organizations, and businesses, you may find it happening more in the private sector where there is a regime that is honored by a process of inspection. But sometimes in the public sectors, government facilities, there's often a breakdown as to those maintenance and inspection processes. There's always somebody not doing the job. And I said it a couple of weeks ago on a program that it's time that we start holding people responsible for the things that they're supposed to do and not doing it. They have to be held accountable for embezzlements or other things that go missing, and they need to be made public examples. And unless that start happening, we'll be having tears a lot of times. Our heart will be heavy because people are not doing what they're supposed to do. It has to start somewhere, and one of the starts we have. Grenada is not short of having instruments and having plans. We have a lot of that, but I continue to stress that one of our greater problems is enforcement. We're not short of instruments. We're not short of laws and procedure to do things. If we do them more often, we'll find the weaknesses and we will revise them.
But why is it we seem, though the laws are there, but we seem to adopt that seeming laissez-faire, nonchalant approach to adherence?
You know what? Our geographical location, sometimes our social construct may lend itself to that. Grenada is such a tranquil, such a quiet place that people tend to believe that things would not happen. And remember last week we were speaking about God being a Grenadian, but I did say that God has global citizenship.
Yes.
And sometimes the atmosphere of being quiet and nothing happening is a disadvantage because people tend to believe, well, it would not happen. And sometimes the people who are supposed to enforce it, well, maybe it may and may not. And we need to give a person a chance, and we need to give a bribe. We need to take some hard stops a lot of time to make things happen. And because we have been given a blight and allowing things to pass for so often, it becomes normal. And the normal is to our disadvantage. Again, we allow it to go on, it fester, and everybody pass on it. There are lots of things I've seen here in my short time or not, that it becomes normal through practice and through ignorance. People just ignore it. Law enforcement people don't bother about it. People in the community don't bother about it, and so it just seems as, well, that's a norm.
Right.
And then when time to pull that back, it becomes a challenge even for the state mechanism. You look at somebody just come and they put a big a shop from somewhere and they drop it on the Grand Dance Road going into the beach and so forth, and they want to do a business there.
Right.
It stays there for weeks. They're told to move it, it's not moved. It stays there for a while, somebody forget it, and suddenly somebody open up a business.
Right.
A gentleman comes, he just built a little house on the roadside. I saw that happen. Right on the roadside, it's infringing an aspect of the road. He's left there, he's going on. And later on, this becomes his property. Now, later on, people decide to move him. The law, whatever process of time passes, and now the government or the state mechanism has to now provide some place for that person. When in the first instance, God said
he should
not have done it.
But sometimes,
and people pass on it, you just go on.
Sometimes you get the sense, though, that the things that makes us unique, warm, and inviting, what the outside world wants to see, we still say good morning. We will stop and give directions and all of that.
I love us for that.
Those are the very things.
Yes.
That becomes a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because we just seem to take everything. We assume that everybody's innocent, everybody's just nice and easygoing, and we just.
And that's one of the challenges to national security, that we take things for granted, and that Grenadians are nice because they did say a pleasant hello to you. This guy just stopped by your gap and he called you a pleasant good morning to you, and asked you if you have any work to do, or if you have any little thing or the place, and he asks you a genuine question. But what he's doing then, you take him for granted. He's observing your place.
Surveillance.
And he's doing his own thing, and later on he comes back and he breaks. And you see that stranger, and you want to be careful as to what kind of a question that you answer to. That's a security issue. We have situations where there is a crisis that happen, and people get looted and otherwise, because you did not create a proper business plan and have that business continuity structure that speaks to also securing your business property. And then you found that places are looted because the police presence were not there in time. And so if we use the police as a good example, when in 2004 there was all of these looting that went on because the police were not there as they should have been, were not expecting such a thing to have happened, how it happened. But then the police went on 360 and corrected that in 2005. And what they had was the Emily plan that spoke to pre-deploying people in areas of certain risk, that when something happened, the police will be there in short time, or they'll be there before people arrive. And that is national security measures, an issue that would prevent deterioration and setback to economies.
But are you fearful, though, that in order to get to that point, that we will lose that genuine warmth of who we are? How do you strike the balance? Because a guy stops, I said, Joe, how is you? What you have in the back of your house? I said, okay, fine. But if we decide now to morph ourselves into society where we decide to become more critical, is it possible that we then lose that innocence as it is that makes us so unique and warm?
No, but we would not lose it, but we have to move with the time, and there's something called situational awareness and being up to date, being current. You have to follow trends, and this is I always encourage people to listen to the news. Don't just follow the music everywhere. If you travel with me, you realize my radio is always on GBN. I listen, and I make myself available for the 6:45 news. If I'm somewhere, I put on for the 12 o'clock news, and then in the evening I'm on again. I also take the 6 a.m. BBC News, the 8 a.m. BBC News. So I happen to be current. So when I speak up and I tell people something, really and truly, where that is happening? I said, yeah.
Right.
And it's only, so we have to become situationally aware and understand that things will change, and if it change, we got to change. We have to change.
Not will change. It is changing, even though as we speak. The truth, because what you may realize, Sylvan, that while we're here, the world, that what we may see as being objective, appropriate, no. We'll be surprised in the next 5 minutes they pass a law somewhere, and then you realize, ooh, I'm actually out of touch.
We need to be able to move with the times, and we have to adapt to change. And it's one of the greatest, or one of the greater challenges that administrations, policymakers will have, because I think human beings by nature like change, or will like to adjust to change. But change is a process of life, and him that is ignorant or not subject to change, he too is ignorant of life.
Some are saying though that our children, that change which we yearn, our children, they have changed. They're so different from us.
You know what? There are a couple of factors. One, yes, the technological era has also changed, but if you want to be the change that society should be, it needs to start from very young. And when the child cries for something, these infants, they born with certain things, and they are innovative, they explore things as well, and so we have to be the guiding force from the onset. So this is why when the baby pulls on something, there has to either be the little tap on the hand or the stern pull away, that the baby understand that this is wrong. But people tend to believe that my child should not cry. A child cry is the only way that the child could say I want to, or I have some objection to something. And so you have to put the balance between, should I allow that child to cry? And people, when the child is crying, give the child the phone. You give the child a gadget from an infant because it's attractive, there are things on the screen, and what you create is a house monster that wants to stick on a gadget for the rest of his or her life. You don't take them out in the yard because that's what you put in their hand,
right?
The gadget. So they stick on that. So that's where the process of societal change happened to be. I've heard a lot of people in many programs speak about going back to the family values and going back to culturing people from there.
Is that possible? Can we get back to that point? Or was the train left the station and we heading down south?
Well, this is where 1979 came from. That led to all of where we are, because the era of the 1950s and all of that, people were thinking that there was too much of a particular thing happening. And so the 1979, with those who had the gumption, the internal fortitude and tenacity, wanted to make some change. And so the change came about. Whether it was felt to be legal, illegal, or otherwise, or welcome, it did come. And it brought with it some consequences, a lot of positive, but that is the process of life that we have to adjust. And now we are faced with something that we were faced with a situation in the 1950s where Grenada was, and we were speaking about the wage bill and how people worked and the condition they were going through, and all they needed was somebody to take, who had some insight, some drive to lead. Now, the world doesn't need to have all leaders. The world just needs a few good leaders, and you will have excellent followers. Everybody can be a leader, and everybody should not be followers. And so you had Eric Gary, who came in there in the early 1950s, and the people saw him as a really good man, a savior. He came through with them, helped them with all the processes of the plantation and the victimization in terms of not being paid, the underwage and all that, and there were the trade union issues and the fighting for, you remember the GMMIW and so on, Greater Maritime and Intellectual Workers and all these things? I don't know if they are alive too, but that was part of Gary's thing and so forth. But that process came through. And there, because of, again, everything else, where somebody with power around them, it is very, very easy to put power in the hands of sometimes people who can become dictators or otherwise, and sometimes not by their own doing. Power in itself is something that has to be managed. If it's not well managed, it can drive you and derail you of what it should do. And so there's a great faction that found that he had lost the image of what he had done. And so there was this switch. And then in 1979 rose up, and some people followed. And then within the 1979, there was this creation of the breakaway and the ideologies and the differences of opinion and the differences of culture and norms and so forth. And then there was a breaking away. There was this breaking in between. One faction then for Morris, one faction for Bernard Cole, and etc. And then you had all of these coming in. And so when that broke, something else happened. Grenada was placed into something else. And then you had the October 19th. Following the October 19th, there was going to be another change. So if RMC had continued, there was going to be another change. And then you had the Invasion, Intervention, or Rescue Mission.
So is it what we see in Sylvan, that innate nature in us, that innate that built-in desire to change, to evolve.
Yes.
Is that what we see? However, the question is not the evolutionary process, but how do we manage that? And it takes us back to the 1983 process. How do you decide? Were they martyrs or were they villains?
Or were they heroes?
Or were they heroes?
Right.
Some would argue, well, one was, so the other one wasn't. Or is it just somewhere along the process, there was not a meeting of minds.
Right.
And the plan derailed.
Right.
Some will say maybe it was planned, it was destined to be. They say you live by the gun, you die by the gun.
Yeah.
You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
We've shifted the conversation right into where we wanted to be speaking this morning, because October 19th is on us. It's going to be observed as Heroes Day. We don't know who are the people who will go up as national heroes and where the monuments will be established. But
from my understanding, there won't be any namings for the 19th itself. Yeah. That would be reserved for when we do the great unveiling on the 20th. On
the 30th is going to be. Remember, we're launching 50th anniversary of Grenada's independence on the 30th of October.
Right, but there won't be no naming on the 19th.
As yet.
There's a committee that's going to be.
I think that's intentional.
Yes.
Because as we spoke, the controversy continues. Who is a hero, who's a villain, and who's a martyr?
We'll take a quick commercial break, 29 minutes onto the hour. We're going to open up the telephone lines and we're going to delve into the conversation right here on To The Point for today, the 16th of October. We'll be right back.
Introducing the NIS Dream Loan, where possibilities are boundless and your aspirations are our priority. No matter where life takes you, NIS Dream Loans are here to make your dreams a reality. From purchasing your first plot of land or dream property to renovating spaces, building your home, and seamlessly switching mortgages, we cater to every step of your journey. And here's what sets us apart. We offer easy financing options with competitive interest rates, quick approval processes, and flexible repayment terms. So why wait? Apply now and let our dedicated NIS team guide you through this exciting journey. Visit nisgrenada.org/dream loan or call 440-3309 to book an appointment. Terms and conditions apply. Your dream awaits.
The National Lotteries Authority is a proud sponsor of many cultural activities within the Tri-Island state of Grenada.
My name is Anderson Matheson, also known as Leftist, and I'm a calypsonian and string band music player from Carrico. I support the games of the National Lottery Authority because culture benefits tremendously. Annually, the NLA supports the Carrico Pitamatic Carnival, the Carrico String Band Music Festival, and all regattas, among other activities. When I play the game of the NLA, I can see where my money goes, and it's an investment into our culture.
Yes, Grenada, when you play the games of the NLA, you enable us to invest in the skills and talents of our people in the areas of sports, culture, and nation building.
It's gone past 12 minutes onto the hour of 10 o'clock to the point. Sylvan McIntyre on the inside with me. We have a caller that is on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, good morning. Greetings. Greetings to Mr. McIntyre. I'm happy to hear Mr. McIntyre make these statements this morning as it relates to change in our country. But he's fallen short, Mr. McIntyre. Changes in countries come around violently or non-violently. Fortunately, in this world today, there have been sufficient studies, research, academic work to show how we can, in addition to the violence or outside of violence, bring about change. But it can be done, to stress on that, cannot be done by a couple of politicians. Fact is, we have allowed people who enter the fray as politicians change into demagogues. We have allowed them to manipulate us for years. Truths have been revealed over the years. For instance, and I like to talk about this one because this is a pet peeve, we live in a country without a legitimate constitution. And the people who know this and who have the authority to change it do nothing about it. So, McIntyre, if you know differently, please let me know. We speak of being politically independent, and we do not even have an Independence Act. In other words, if an act or acts are the documents which show and give faith, legitimacy to the foundation of the country and otherwise. Therefore, why is it we're operating without these things? The people who ought to know have studied and they do nothing about it. So you see, Mr. McIntyre, it comes therefore for people like you and others, I don't even want to talk about myself, to identify to the people why it is important therefore that the people get involved in bringing about the change themselves in the country. I want to refer you, sir, to the public, the Grenada national population, the theory of the Constituent Assembly. It is important that we teach the people in some way or other, inculcate them, help to orientate them, that there are peaceful ways of bringing about changes. One of the things I think we ought to do is continue to ask the government of this country to demonstrate to us that the Constitution is legitimate. Demonstrate to us that we are, in fact, a politically independent and sovereign nation state. And the thing is, nobody has the quote-unquote scrotal, intestinal, nor voluntary fortitude to do so. And when other people do it like me, in this case, I become a crazy, blind jackass. This is unfortunate, Mr. McIntyre. I urge you, therefore, to research the theory of the Constituent Assembly. Take a note well.
Yeah. Okay.
And next time you come back, see if we can advise the people. Finally, the choice of Heroes Day. I'm happy that in your discussions there you've raised a very powerful question. Issue whether people within our country are heroes, because this is clearly defined, martyrs, clearly defined in the dictionary, and villains. Whom do we commemorate, mark, or celebrate? The things that I'm hearing so ambiguous from these committees tells me that they're more confused than flammers in red ants' nests. They don't seem to understand anything. I suppose very soon. I really do hope that these people rethink what they're doing and what they're saying, these big bright boys, and stop bluffing the Grenadian people. We have had enough.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Wonderful day to you as well. Is it ever possible? I want to say good morning to those of you that's on social media. Antonio, Williams, we see you and we hear you. Is it possible? And as part of that, and I just wanted to say we did talk about change,
yes,
and we never in any way, form, or fashion advocated or is advocating that the process of change has to be violent.
It doesn't have to be violent.
It doesn't have to be.
I agree with Mr. Olo.
It doesn't have to be. We've seen through Gandhi, for one, was one that, of course, showed that change doesn't necessarily have to be violent. The question is whether or not in fact, we have the testicular fortitude to stick to that which we believe that it will come through. But is it possible that the villain he starts as a villain, but he turns out to be a hero eventually?
Well,
was Robin Hood a villain or a hero?
It depends on, this will continue to be a big question, a big question mark, because Grenada has been divided, still divided into factions. Mm-hmm. And it depends on where your allegiance or your line of thinking is. You will choose what statement or what position that you hold as to whether some persons should be called heroes, whether they were villains or whether they were martyrs.
Or both?
And this is I don't know if all three can come in the same statement or category. But that is critically important. There will continue to be this divide, and that is why it is really, really important before a decision is made that can create further divide in our country, that consideration, that involvement of people, that consultative process at ground level up should be undertaken. And unfortunately, you will not be able to please or satisfy everybody, but attempts should be made to create the opinion, the facts generated by the many.
Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Attempts should be made to create, to national, to stop the national divide. Stronger attempts should be made. And I am saying, as a listener and as a Grenadian, I am still not sure. I'm still confused as to what October 19 will be in honor of. I am still confused. I have listened to all different programs, and I am hearing it has a strong leaning to what happened on the 4th. But in and between the discussion, you would hear something like it is for people who have contributed to history and its national heroes. So then, are we going to start our national list of national heroes from October 19th, or are we going to go back to even T.A. Marichaud, who was struggling for the government that we today enjoy? Are we going to look at a little young girl who was about 7 years, who followed her older siblings to Queen's Park on June 19, 1980, to celebrate a Heroes Day during the Revolution? She was a victim of a bomb blast there. She lost one leg and a little part of her torso there, but she survived it all. She managed to go to school. She got a job and everything. She's today a very independent woman. Will she be considered a national hero? With one leg, she can show people how they can achieve. I am looking at things like that, because when we're listening to discussion, it seems that the list will start October 19, 1983. And again, Mr. McIntyre, thank you for that statement.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I want to agree with the caller that it's going to create a lot of conversation. Because the reason why, because historically, when we hear the 19th, there's a certain emotion that surrounds and then envelopes that period. Right. But just to answer the question, having spoken with the individuals, the idea is that the day should be all encompassing. Because yet again, you would ask the question, villain, who was, who wasn't? But as you said, if you want to focus on it being heroes, National Heroes Day, will we ever be able, and does that divide, Sylvan, in any way create a threat? And when we say threat to national security, would it? Can it?
We will want to be able to chime in a little bit on the impression from the people. Everything has its implication for some level of risk associated, because people are driven by the circumstance around them, and the circumstance will dictate their action and their own feelings as to what they are likely to do. So if you speak about Heroes Day, October 19th or otherwise, as the caller has just said, whether it's going to start from there. Are you going to say the people who died on the 4th are they are heroes because what were they doing? Are you saying then that Morris is a hero because he died for the cause? And would people who then was part of another faction who shot and killed then was saying that they were not heroes because they violated X, Y, and or Z? So that's where the conversation could really become sticky as to which side, because in some quarters, before Morris and others were assassinated, there were factions who felt that it had to have been the case.
We laud the advances that were made during the revolution.
Yes. We did.
We lauded those advances. The economic growth that took place within 4.5 years, the local industries and everything. It wasn't the effort of one man. It was not just Maurice.
No.
It was the Bernard Cord and the others. It was the brains.
It was a system that generated the outcome that we were applying for, that the revolution period prided itself on. And there was a lot of gains that came to the revolution. And then people also argue there's a lot of disadvantage that came off, because some may argue that the whole process of discipline and all of that may have been followed through the revolution, when youngsters were so exposed to arms and ammunition, where parents at the time then felt The revolution was a good thing to involve the youth and the young people, but the extent to which they were exposed to arms and ammunition created a disadvantage and a fear to those who should have instilled a different kind of discipline. So that, again, in itself is a different argument. Now, October 19th, then, as the caller was saying, if it's going to start there then, the significance will tend to be rested on October 19th, even if you tend to name other people, or will that be the intention? As she said, would we bring people through the ages who made some national impact and perished for the cause? Are these people then martyrs, or people who did something significant, rescue certain amount of people? Are you going to call them national heroes? Will you call some people in 2004 who risked their lives to save hundreds of people during Hurricane Ivan, would they be in the category of national heroes?
Let's hear what this caller has to say on the conversation. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Regarding the new holiday of October 19th, I think it is redundant to have both the 19th and the 25th as holidays. It's a week apart. It's a waste of labor and time. And it's the same event. It's the same situation. So we either choose the 19th, we choose the 25th to celebrate the whole event as to what happened. The end of the revolution, the sad demise and failure of the revolution government, the Americans coming in to help. We choose one day. To have these back-to-back holidays, I think is a waste of taxpayers' time. I believe the NDC government came in and decided that and thought that this was one of the ways to make people happy and almost reward their voters to give them this extra holiday, because Grenadians like holidays. So I think this 19th was a way to make people feel good about them. And I think it's unnecessary, these two holidays. Look at September 11th in the U.S. Look at how massive that catastrophe was. How many people died. Do the U.S. have a holiday for that? No. This is a waste of time. And another thing, Mr. Rollo always refers to the government as the bright boys fooling the Grenadian people. He needs to stop his sarcasm. They are there. They are our leaders. Every time he calls in, he refers to them as the bright boys fooling the Grenadian people. He needs to have some respect for them. They are bright. They are the ones in charge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller.
The conversation gets deeper.
It gets deeper. And she said that. I looked at the clock and I'm like, boy. Let's go back to the telephone lines. Yeah. We got a caller. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This lady who just spoke, she couldn't say it any better. I mean, this should drive it home. What is 19th? What is a holiday for? 2 holidays in 1 month, which means nothing. You think of the revenue the country is losing for the 2 days. I mean, it's really ridiculous. But that's what happens when you get square pegs in wrong holes. Where does Jacqueline come from that just end up as head and making all these decisions? Didn't we have people in our country that lived through the struggles, that know the struggles and know the significance of dates and celebrations? All of a sudden, she knows more than all of us.
Okay, caller. Thank you. I just want to say, for the purpose, I would not ever encourage us to start getting personal.
Yeah.
It's a committee that has been brought together.
Yes.
She is just chairing the committee, and I think it's unfortunate when we want to start pinpointing an individual when in fact it's a committee that comes together with recommendations to other non-governmental organizations to make that decision. So it's not any one individual that determined that the 19th should be a public holiday.
Before you take that call, I am saying that the conversation and the controversy will continue. Mm-hmm. October 19th, when Morris was freed and brought up, the people who went up to the fort and died, are they considered as heroes because they assisted in freeing Morris and they died for a cause? Are they heroes or are they martyrs? The October 25th then, was it an invasion? Was it an intervention or a rescue mission? Who determines that? The question is, and the conversation around the analogy. There are factions of persons who have their own feeling as to where things were.
Right.
There were people who felt that the masses should not have done what they did, and so they suffer the consequences. So which side are you going on? Which side are you going to satisfy? Those who freed Morris, or those who said that these people were violating the aspect of the military and invading military headquarters, etc.
Right.
And then it rolled out into October 25th. Was it a rescue mission? Were there people in Grenada that needed to be rescued? Did Grenada have its own affairs that foreigners invaded Grenada's sovereignty and overcrossed that? And were there people that were at risk that they had to have been a rescue mission or just an intervention, or people intervene to pacify the situation?
Because, if you follow the history, and then if you go back to the 25th, you can then also go back and look at what was happening in the region at the time. The culture, Grenada's relationship with Cuba, Cuba's relationship with the U.S. So this conversation gets really, really, really deep.
It gets really deep.
Some have argued that this was a plan that was already in motion, that they used what happened as a cover. So
the question definitely should be, would people recommend that it is better, because there would be so much controversy over the days, and we can't run away from it because you can't please everybody. Would it be best to leave the situation as is and do not create any major national decision as to which way it should go?
We go to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller.
Hello, morning.
Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Yes, good morning, caller. Go ahead.
The holiday, the 19th of October, I feel it is right, and because that is our holiday, to declare our heroes. The 25th is a day of Thanksgiving, which is for the rescue mission or whatever it be to save lives. But then, looking back at the calendar, we have a lot of holidays which are not really, is not bound to be acknowledged, because it's things that was put on us. This is what we in our country has declared for our heroes and that is our national holiday. So I don't see any difference in the 19th and the 25th. The 19th is for us, the 25th is for Thanksgiving. But then we have other holidays which are not necessary.
Okay, caller.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is that caller intimating that we should probably try and reverse some of the holidays before, if we think we have it?
Because there are other months that comes to two holidays.
Yes.
And we're not even sure what the holidays are for. But we have accepted it.
Right. So I think his point is really credible, that a reconsideration should be made, if we're going to accept. So should there be other things that shows up that needs national recognition? What amount of holidays is our economy able to accommodate?
5 minutes on to the hour into the morning time. My guest, Sylvan McIntyre. We go back to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You're alive? Nothing's coming there. So we have about 5 minutes, and we've opened a Pandora's box in some. But
the conversation is useful.
But the conversation, it is useful. It is timely.
Yes.
It is relevant. Let's go back to the telephone lines. Good morning, caller. You're live. Hello, caller.
Morning.
Yes, sir. I would need you to turn down the device that's in the background, please.
Yeah, it's down. Is it on?
It is still on, sir. I'm hearing the feedback.
Yeah. Hello?
Speak to us on the phone, please.
Sir, I need you to conduct the conversation via the telephone. I know you want to hear yourself as how eloquent you are coming across, but it changes the dynamics of the conversation. Just turn the whatever device in the background that is on and speak to me on the telephone.
You hear me now?
I'm hearing you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good morning.
No, so that device is still on, and I'm trying to be patient with you.
Down.
Yes, go ahead. Hello, sir. 435-2041. Folks, we always encourage as we get ready to wrap up the conversation. I know you want to be able to hear yourself and be listen, it's a telephone conversation you're having. Wherever you are, turn the device down. This person says, Ronnie Slinger says, October the 19th, the guns was to turn on the people. A pledge was broken. Holiday indeed.
Okay.
Does that something?
It's not a way I would want to sum my program up, but we have to respect the view of every person. I think the views and the concerns shared by our population is what the committee, I'm sure, would use to consider making the final decision. But as we look at October 19th, as we chime into also the October 25th, we are also heading to the launching of 50 years, October 30th as well. And I just want to use this opportunity to really commend our Grenadians, our patriotism, and so forth. We do have quite a number of patriots, and people show that through expressions. I really want to commend what I've seen over the years, particularly along the West Coast. And the colors still remain. You can see those colors really embedded along the streets. In some places, seems to have been overdone. But what is really striking to me, I do not know of any side of the island where some of our, what you would call our leaders, are so very visible in paintings. We have the Mighty Sparrow. There's a place up that side where his image was generated somewhere around the Black Bay area. And as you go further into Victoria, there's an entire wall where the governor generals and some of our leaders, they are painted and recognized. You stem further up, all the way up to they're close to Samaritan and so forth. There's the walls up there that shows the paintings of past prime ministers, governor general. That is remarkable. I really want to commend Grenadians on the level in which we showcase our Grenadianism. We need to be able to show that in every sense of the word that we love our country. We must be able to put away our divides and our own feelings of how things should be and look at the macroeconomic picture in terms of how we can develop Grenada that all of us could benefit from it all. At the end of the day, there will be differences of opinion. There will be different leaders elected like or don't like, but there has to be somebody to stay into leadership, and they are entitled to our commitment, our dedication, and our service honestly to ensure that Grenada moves forward. As we head towards 50, as we recognize our heroes, as we say thanks to the Almighty, not necessarily to those or to the individuals which we need to say thank you to, but there will be differences of opinion as to whether we should or we should not. But at the end of the day, for those of us who suffer the negative consequences of the situation, when October 25th came, some people said, thank you, America, for rescuing us. And generally, there's a feeling of, thank you, Lord, for taking us out from a situation that we were not happy with. And others may say that it was not a situation that we were unhappy with. There was a just cause that we had to have moved to the period that we were in.
2 minutes on to the hour, reminding you folks the 19th of October, Heroes Day, and certainly the conversation would start this year. But as time goes on, there will be the unveiling and the naming. There will also be a park, and the idea is that we too can be part of this. The intention is that we as Grenadians, part of the citizenry, can be part of this really historic movement to name our heroes. We always find time to criticize everything else. Now we get an opportunity, whether it's on the 19th or any other day. I think that sort of patriotism that we're speaking of, that sense of pride that we get from being Grenadians as the march continues towards 50. I like what I'm hearing. What I'm hoping, though, that we get to a point where we can agree that you and I, Sylvan, we will never agree on everything. No, we don't. But if we can learn to say, you know what, Sylvan, I disagree with you, but I understand. I think that's just what I'm hoping we can get out of this. There's always going to be a divide as to what happened on the 19th, what happened on the 25th. These are the different side of the same coins. Can you separate them? You really and truly, you can't. If you're going to beg for the 25th, then obviously
you gotta say something on the 19th.
You have to say, okay, well, there was the 19th. Let's use this point at the juncture in our life where we reflect on who we are as a people as we continue to march towards 50. But first, before we celebrate 50, we're going to celebrate the launch of everything else that's going to mark us as a people.
So,
until
Joe,
then,
are heroes dead or are they alive?
Are heroes dead or are they alive?
Should we have dead heroes or alive heroes? Is that a question? Because there is a definition for who should be considered a hero.
We'll leave that conversation for another place and time, given that we've expired the clock time that is on the wall. From all of us here, Sylvan McIntyre, Joseph Cadore, thanks for being part of the conversation on To The Point for today, the 16th. Until then, so long, everybody.
Peace.